Hello, everybody. You're listening to Fireside Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jordan Cline. I am really excited for this week. We got a lot going on. I do want to remind everybody, check us out on all the socials. You know, we got Facebook.com/Fireside Paranormal Podcast. We got our Facebook group. It's really active and it's a lot of fun. Fireside Paranormal Hub. Check it out. Join it. Get involved. There's some pretty big names in the paranormal world in that group, and you know they're interactive too. So if there's anything you want to ask, anything you want to share, you know, everybody's really open to it. And I'm always open to hear your stories. If you have a story you want to share, send it to me, Fireside Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but we have merch. We got t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, cups, stickers, tote bags, it pretty much anything. It's cell phone cases. It's really crazy. But you can check that out at firesideparanormal.com. I want to get to our guest today. This guy's been a friend of mine for at least 10 years. You know, we've been talking a long time. He was a friend when I was a host of another radio show. His name is Tom Mihok. He's been a paranormal investigator since 2003. He's the founder of Penn Hills Paranormal. He's a member of Fay West Paranormal, and he's actually a field researcher for the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, and that's really what I want to talk about this week. Tom, are you with us?
I am, Jordan.
Oh, Tom, for having me. I'm really excited to hear about this. You know, everybody thinks paranormal, and they automatically thinks ghosts and hauntings and demons and things like this, but paranormal is a huge stretch. You know, we got the UFOs, we got cryptids. For whatever reason, for a long time, I just wasn't into the cryptid thing. You know, we would talk about Bigfoot before and my brain would like click off. Okay, whatever. Yeah, right. Okay, I'm done talking. But man, I want to say within the last year, like, I am so infatuated with this whole cryptid phenomena, and I want to hear more about it because you started as a regular paranormal researcher, right? Like with the ghosts and ghost hunting.
Yeah, I primarily just did hauntings, probably for the first 10, 15 years. Then I'd always had a passion for the cryptozoology, and for reasons we can get into, tonight, I segued into the cryptozoology, but I had to wait a while for it. Primarily because in my area where I lived at the time, just outside of Pittsburgh, there was only a handful of reputable researchers. There's a lot of people in cryptozoology, just like it is with, ufology and ghost hunting or what have you, that they're out there for the wrong reasons, don't do it the right way. So I wanted to wait until I found somebody who was, rock solid and legitimate and somebody that I could really learn from.
So you always been kind of into it. You just were waiting for the right time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Probably got interested in Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and those kind of things before I got interested in hauntings.
Okay.
But with the dawn of Ghost Hunters TV show back in, I want to say it was 2002 or somewhere around there, it became really easy to get out and just get started in that. You could go and buy some basic equipment for $100, $150 and, go to somewhere like the Moundsville Penitentiary or Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, places that had the public events.
Oh, yeah.
And you could go, polish your craft. So it was really easy and really accessible. And I think that's why I ended up getting involved into that initially. Cryptozoology, especially back then, they're really, it wasn't in the forefront like it is now. And it was a little bit harder to find somebody to apprentice to or, someone to kind of teach you the right way to do things. So I had to wait until I found somebody that I could really trust because I did not want to go about it the wrong way.
Now, there's really not many shows out there, because with Ghost Hunters, they taught you, about the equipment as the show was going on. Like, hey, this is what this piece of equipment does. This is how we read it. This is what we look for. cryptid hunting didn't really have that, right?
Not so much, no. There primarily from what I can remember, the majority of the quote unquote cryptid shows early on were your monster quest, in search of unsolved mysteries. They would have episodes on, Bigfoot or Loch Ness, maybe the Dog Man of Michigan or Bray Road, but they really didn't go into a how-to mode. It was more just a brief summary of what the legend or the reports were.
So this is one thing that, because like, how do I want to say this? When you're going into a house, like doing an investigation in a house, you have a very controlled area. You know,
Yes.
you know you're going in at night. You got the infrared cameras. You can control where your audio is, and where your cameras are pointed. When you're doing like a Bigfoot hunt, how do you control your area? Because I mean, where do you even start? Because you just say, okay, the woods, right?
Right. Well, I mean, you don't control it, to be quite honest. I mean, you do the best you can to, just like when you're on a paranormal investigation, if you're doing an EVP session and a car goes by the house and somebody speaks up and tags it per se, and they say, oh, it's a car, or somebody coughs and they say cough. They try to mark it or tag it so that when you're reviewing evidence, you don't get fooled by something that was human made or explainable. Well, I mean, you do the best you can, but obviously, like you said, when you're out in the forest, there's really no way to totally control your environment. I've been on a number of expeditions where we've been deep in the forest, been there for 5 hours, and then all of a sudden you've got somebody coming through on a quad. So
Oh gosh, I
you
bet
know,
that's
it's, yeah, I
completely
mean,
frustrating.
it can be very frustrating, but you just do the best you can. Like I said, when we go out, we have usually go out in a group of anywhere between 5 and 10 people at a time. We'll have people in the particular area that we go to. Somebody may be a quarter mile down the trail with the walkie-talkie. Somebody might be a quarter mile the other direction. We'll spread out,
Yeah, so that's
be
really
in
spread out.
communication. Well, yeah, I mean, we investigate the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. We are all through the state, but we primarily, or at least the several people that I investigate with, we primarily investigate in the Chestnut Ridge, mostly in Westmoreland or Fayette County in Pennsylvania. Historically, over the years, there have been, I mean, just an abundance of sightings, not only for Bigfoot, but for UFOs, hauntings,
Really?
other cryptids.
Now, is there anything
Um,
about that area in particular that would like bring that in?
well, I mean, it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. Because, and the reason I say that is, there's just like with UFOs or paranormal, there's different camps and different theories as to what Bigfoot is. You have the traditional camp, and that's probably the camp that I fall into mostly, that it's a flesh and blood creature. It's an unknown primate or an unknown, animal. You have the camps that have become a little bit more known recently in the last several years that say that Bigfoot's an alien, because there are and have been for years a consistent amount of reports of Bigfoot sightings with UFOs. And
Really?
when I say with UFOs, I mean in the same area, in the same 50 yards. This is documented extremely well by my mentor, is Eric Altman. His mentor is Stan Gordon. If you're not familiar with Stan Gordon, he is pretty much, he is in Pennsylvania a legend. He has been researching UFOs and Bigfoot since the mid 60s. He was the primary and is the primary investigator on the Kecksburg Ufo Incident. If you get his book, Silent Invasion, it's about the Bigfoot and UFO flap of 1973 in Pennsylvania. And there are some cases in there that will absolutely blow your mind. So, there's that camp that says it's UFO alien related. There's a camp that says it's interdimensional. I've even had some reachers pose the theory that Bigfoot is part of the Fae.
Okay.
So depending on which camp you belong to, you may have a different view of the ridge. John Keel believed that Point Pleasant was a quote-unquote window area, and he believed that that's why there was the UFO activity, Mothman sightings, Men in Black, etc. Well, there's a lot of people that believe that the Chestnut Ridge is that type of area as well, because it is, like I said, historically known for all different types of paranormal reports, strange sightings, and it's not just 5 or 10 in the 70s, a few in the 80s. It's consistently every year.
Now, why do you think? Because you've invoked Mothman, right? So I will touch on that. Most people think of the Mothman as just like the creature Mothman, but like you said, that whole flap right there was Men in Black and UFO sightings. Like there was a stretch of time where it was like a circus with everything, and I've even heard stories of the Fae being involved in that as well, with some of the sightings. And for the layman, that would be like fairy folk, right?
Yeah.
So why is that well known, but Chestnut Ridge, where's their spotlight? Why aren't we hearing more about that?
Well, you actually are hearing more and more about it in recent years. Of course, the first time the Chestnut Ridge really became known, kind of indirectly, was, as I mentioned, the Kecksburg Ufo Incident in 1965. Kecksburg is right on the ridge. A lot of Bigfoot sightings have been reported in that area, in the surrounding areas there as well. But that was the first time that, a major event kind of, made national news from the ridge.
Now when you said, let me interrupt you just a second. When you said that there
Sure,
were Bigfoot sightings by UFO sightings, were you like at the same time, or are you saying, hey, like
yes.
there's been UFO sightings here, and then like Bigfoot like a year later in the same spot? Like,
no, I mean at the same time, at the exact same moment. And again, these are very well documented in Stan Gordon's book, Silent Invasion. Anyone that has an interest in Bigfoot and UFOs, it's definitely a must get to add to your library. But there's a couple of sightings that happened. One in particular, and I, the entire story, we could spend 3 hours on it. But essentially, the bare bolts of it is that several people, fathers, his children, witnessed a very, very bright, large object hovering over the field. They got in their truck, went up the hill on their property to examine it, see what it was. When they got there, they saw a large craft hovering over the field. It was giving out enough light that, you could, according to the witnesses, you could stand under it and read a paper. Now, this was at night. At the same time, they noticed several Bigfoot walking down the fence line of the property. The father actually shot at one, had a tracer round in the gun. According to the report, the Bigfoot, as soon as the gentleman fired, the Bigfoot reached his hand out and the craft disappeared.
Oh, wow.
The Bigfoot was unaffected by the shot. They turned around and walked back up the fence line. There was another report. Now, this was back in 1973.
Now, do you mean like disappeared, like it vanished or flew away?
The UFO vanished.
Okay.
And when when Stan Gordon and his team, along with the state troopers, when the state trooper that was called got to the scene, he actually stated in the report that even though the craft was gone, the area was still illuminated to the point where you could read a newspaper in it if you'd have had one. And this was at dead of night. So whatever the object was, it left enough residual energy there that area stayed very illuminated for a good stretch of time. That was, of course, in Fayette County up on the Chestnut Ridge. There was a report in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, during this same stretch of time, 1973, where two girls witnessed a white Bigfoot walking down. They lived kind of out in a rural area near the woods. They witnessed a white Bigfoot walking down the tree line, and this is the part that a lot of people have trouble with. It was holding a glowing ball of light in its hand.
Oh.
It went into the woods, and all of a sudden it was gone. So, there's even another report in Stan's book that up on the Chestnut Ridge, up in the Ohiopyle area, that a lady who lived in a cabin up there thought she had some wild dogs, rummaging on her porch, took her shotgun out to scare the dogs away, steps out onto the porch, and 5 feet away from her, according to the report, is a tall, hair-covered creature. She didn't call it a Bigfoot, but it was a tall, hair-covered creature that put its hands up over its head as if to say, "Don't hurt me," or, something to that effect.
Like surrendering?
She fired at it.
Oh.
Yeah, she fired her rifle at it, and according to her report, the minute she fired the gun, the Bigfoot or the creature disappeared in a flash of light. Now, that's why I say, depending on what camp you belong to, it kind of will depend on how you view the ridge. I view the ridge personally. I keep an open mind. I'm 90% sure that Bigfoot would be a unclassified animal, or maybe a descendant of Gigantopithecus, something that was thought to be extinct, but a remnant population survived.
All right. For those that don't know, what is that?
Mm-hmm. Gigantopithecus is a large primate that lived quite some time ago. It's believed to be extinct. To be honest with you, I don't have the exact dates or years in front of me. But there have been some scientists who are open-minded to Sasquatch or Bigfoot that have suggested that it's possible that it could be a distant relative, or possibly even Gigantopithecus itself that somehow survived. Maybe it came across the land bridge at one point, however long ago, and a small population has managed to stay hidden. I keep an open mind, because we don't know. Just like with ghost hunting, basically everything is theory.
Yeah.
Until we actually have, a specimen, and I don't advocate shooting or hunting them, but until we actually have a specimen, we really don't know what they are.
All right, so I got some questions,
again,
Tom, because you triggered me a little bit with the
Sure.
glowing ball of light. So if it's just a primate animal out there, what is that glowing ball of light?
Well, that's why I say I'm keeping an open mind, because I've always believed it to be a flesh and blood creature.
Uh-huh.
Now, because of the reports that Stan Gordon, Eric Altman, that they have collected over the years, there have been a number of reports where and I use the term Bigfoot because that's essentially how they're described.
Yeah.
Not all of the witnesses have called what they've seen of Bigfoot. They're generally called a large hair-covered creature, but just for consistency, I'll refer to them as Bigfoot. And there's been a lot of reports that they've collected, like the ones I just mentioned, or couple reports in the Greensburg area, Westmoreland County, where one was spotted walking across a toll road, a highway. And when the cars approached it, it shimmered like you would see in the movie Predator, and it was gone.
Oh.
So, those tend to sound like very fantastic and unbelievable reports, but the average person, if they were walking in the woods and came across a Bigfoot, even if it was a flesh and blood, creature, like I think, they come back and tell somebody, a lot of people will think that's an incredible report too. So, to Stan's credit and to Eric Altman, to his credit, they don't collect the reports and try to bend the report into their own opinion or belief as to what Bigfoot is. They collect the reports and they just collect the data, and they just collect, the facts reported by the witness. And that's why I say I keep an open mind, because we really don't know. Maybe some Bigfoot are flesh and blood. Maybe some are something else.
Yeah, because to me,
like
that just makes
until we have one to study, we really won't know.
Yeah, to me, it just makes it seem like it's there's an extra level of intelligence there if it's able to, hide and, have this glowing ball of, I don't know, in my head, I'm thinking like teleportation or,
Right.
It makes me lean
Right.
towards that interdimensional being thing.
Yeah. And even though that's not primarily where I lean, like I said earlier on, I waited a long time to get into the cryptozoology because
Yeah.
there was only a few reputable, can't talk tonight, researchers in that field in Pennsylvania. And Stan Gordon and Eric Altman are the two best, in my opinion. Stan is, just nationally recognized. He's been around a very long time, and again, Eric is Stan's protege. So I waited a long time to find somebody that, like I said, didn't bend facts to, or didn't try to interpret facts to fit their frame or their idea of what the phenomena is. They collect the facts, they collect the reports, and the reports are as reported. So, everybody's free to make up their own mind or to form their own theories as to actually what the phenomenon is. A lot of people think it's UFO, interdimensional. A lot of people think it's flesh and blood. But just like with paranormal, and from being involved in the paranormal, you can say, you can have 5 different groups investigate a quote-unquote haunted house. 2 will come out and say it's demon infested. 1 will come out and say it's a poltergeist. 1 will come out and say it's fake. Your people, and if you don't have something tangible in front of you, they're going to interpret it. They're going to run the information provided to them through their own intellectual prism, and it's going to come out in the direction that they've already believed it to be.
That's so true.
And I don't think a lot of people do that intentionally, but I think a lot of people do it. And what we try to do is we go out and we investigate a sighting, a report, and like I said, we just take the information down. We don't try to say that, oh, well, it's probably flesh and blood because of this, that, or this. We just go by the facts that are presented.
So a lot of what you do, is it people are having some kind of sighting and they they reach out to you, and then you go and kind of get their report and check the area out? Is that where you kind of find your locations?
That's definitely a big part of it. There have been a few Bigfoot sightings within the last few months on the ridge. One was a paramedic team. Their patrol area is up on the Chestnut Ridge, and it was roughly, I want to say the report was about at midnight as to when it happened, give or take half hour. And they were coming down a road, a 2-lane road, and about 30 or 40 yards ahead, they saw a huge black figure cross the road in 3 steps.
Oh, wow.
Went up onto the embankment. When they got past where the creature crossed, they lost the electronics in their ambulance. The next day, Eric Altman got the report. The next day, he went out, did some measurements. The road was 24 feet across. So whatever it was, crossed the road in 3 steps, covered 24 feet in 3 steps. He didn't find any footprints, any hair samples, anything like that at this particular location, but he did see, the embankment that the creature went up was, loaded with bushes and brush, and he did see a very big trail of something going up the embankment into the woods. Now, we can't say it was a Bigfoot because, 30, 40 yards at night, but, what can cross a road? What can cross 24 feet in 3 steps?
And also, you talk about like the squad car, losing the power, and that's also
Right.
something that goes with like a haunting kind of.
Right. And, and another thing too is a lot of Bigfoot reports, a lot of the incidents that happen during a sighting oftentimes are very similar to poltergeist activity.
Really?
So like I said, the Stan Gordon has a saying that the phenomena is so strange that it protects itself. And that's really true, I think, because, if the things we're talking about right now,
Uh-huh.
if we were to, grab the average Joe on the corner and start telling him this stuff, he's going to be calling the guys in the white jackets for us. This stuff sounds really crazy. And at some point tonight, I do want to tell you about an experience that I had personally.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, it's just these reports, just having a Bigfoot report that somebody saw a large hair-covered creature standing 8 to 10 feet tall walk past them on a hiking trail is, in a sense, fantastic enough. When you start adding in reports that talk about UFOs being witnessed simultaneously, Bigfoot's disappearing in a flash of light, Bigfoot's holding a sphere of light in their hand, it's pretty out there.
Let me ask you this,
I mean,
and I know you want to share a story. I just got a couple questions before we move on with that.
yeah, absolutely.
How often, because I know a lot of your research goes off of, people, calling you, and I know you just went on a hunt a couple months ago, if that. I know we talked.
We typically go out every other weekend, if not sometimes two or three weekends in a row.
Do you get that many reports that you're out weekly?
Typically, when we go out, there are a handful of areas that are known to have a high volume of Bigfoot sightings in the ridge. So those are our primary areas. There's certain parts of the Forbes State Forest that have had a consistent history of sightings. So those are some of the areas that we frequent a lot. Now, the area that we've been going to the last month or so is the area in which the paramedics had their sighting.
Okay.
And when Eric and I were in that area shortly after the paramedic sighting, we were stopping into some businesses to, ask if people had seen anything. We stopped into one local store, and the owner of the store said, "Oh, well, yeah, I was talking to another guy who said he saw the same thing, and it was right about the same area." Now, it wasn't the same day. So again, there have been multiple sightings just in that area. So we will focus our attention, on the areas that have had a consistent amount of reports. But if we do get a report of, a different area or a specific report of a different location, then by all means, we go out there as quickly as we can after the sighting, preferably if possible within a few hours, but that's not always, logistically possible.
Right. Yeah.
So, we'll get out there as soon as possible. And if the report seems credible, then, we'll start factoring that location into our research area as well.
Now, how many reports do you think you get a year?
Well, this year it's been a little quiet, and I don't know if that's because of the end of the pandemic. Sometimes people haven't been going out as much.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the reports can vary. We can get anywhere from 3 reports in 1 month to 20 reports in a year. It really varies, but it has been a little bit quieter this year. Probably not that Bigfoot is affected by COVID, but just because people haven't been going out as much.
Yeah.
I think and in fact also there's a number of researchers that haven't been going out because of COVID. The paranormal events, the Bigfoot conferences, the paranormal events. We attended an event in Gettysburg a few months back, phenomenology, that usually has a pretty good turnout, and it was just decimated this year. A lot of the Bigfoot conferences also just aren't getting the crowds that they would normally get. I think it's primarily because people, a lot of people are still afraid due to COVID.
Still trying to stay away.
Yeah, they're just not going out as often. So I think that's possibly why this year's been a little quieter. But just in the past week, we had a possible Bigfoot report as well as UFO report.
Really? Where at?
The UFO report.
I mean, I don't know if you can tell me this stuff or not, but I'm going to ask.
Well, it's the community it was over is Apollo, Pennsylvania, which is probably about 40 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. The possible Bigfoot sighting, and well, let me rephrase that. Not really so much a sighting as somebody heard a vocalization.
Okay.
And that was in the same area that the paramedics had their sighting, and the other person had the sighting. So that particular area, we seem to be getting a decent amount of reports out of right now.
So I do have to ask, what does Bigfoot sound like?
Well, very loud for one thing. Probably the best, if you were to direct your listeners to an example of it, the Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead. They can Google that. Now he's not from the Pennsylvania area, but he has some very good recordings of what a lot of people believe are actual Bigfoot. There have been Bigfoot vocalizations reported ranging from a high screeching, almost baby-like cry to a deep guttural, almost like what you would imagine a primate would roar.
Yeah.
Um, and we've been out in the ridge numerous times, and we've heard, a lot of times you hear the common animals, the barred owl, the coyotes. We've been out a few times where we've actually heard, I hate to use the cliche term, but the whoop sound. We go out and you make the whoop call or the tree knocks, and we've actually heard that both in response to us and when we weren't even initiating a call. Now, just like with any other paranormal investigation, we didn't see what made the sounds, so we can't say it was a Bigfoot. We can say it didn't sound like any known animal in that forest, and the area that we go to is typically pretty remote. So, and it's at night. So if for example, if there were hikers going through the woods, you would think there would be some type of light. There would be a flashlight. There would be, something. But, the couple of times we've heard very clear whoop calls return to us were in a dark, steep, wooded ravine that we probably wouldn't try to go down in the daytime. So,
now
but again,
do you have to do it at night?
I'm sorry?
Do you have to do the investigations at night? Like, is it like, ghost hunting where you're trying to control that part of the, the investigation, or do you do it through the day as well?
No, you can do it during the day. Actually, on the other end of the Chestnut Ridge, going towards Latrobe or like the Dairy area of the ridge, in years past, there was a sighting of a woman jogging. Now, there's an area along that part of the ridge called Gray Station. There's an active train track, that runs along that part. And a woman was jogging one morning and rounded a corner and reportedly saw a Bigfoot crossing the railroad tracks carrying a deer over its shoulder.
Oh, gosh.
There have been a number of sightings in the Gray Station area over the years. There, just a little bit farther down the road from Gray Station, there was Bigfoot reports or sightings of Bigfoots crossing the highway. And when I say highway, this isn't like a turnpike. It's a 2-lane road, but I mean it's not a back country road. It's a main road. Yeah, the sightings occur at all times, so you don't have to do it at night. But with the aid of like night vision and thermal imaging that we use, sometimes going at night has its benefits, because if something's hiding in the brush, you can pick it out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking with that, camera wise, if it was more beneficial, that way. And that takes me to this next part too. Like, what do you take on an investigation? Like, if somebody was wanting to start doing, cryptid hunts, if they want to do a Bigfoot hunt, what do they need? Like, because with a ghost hunt, I mean, you could pretty much go in there with a tape recorder and do something.
Right. And, well, to go on a Bigfoot hunt per se, the first thing I recommend, find somebody knowledgeable and reputable to go with. Even though, like we said, it's all theory, but still there are legitimate researchers out there who have a good foundation of what to do and how to do it. So the first thing you want to do is find somebody that's good and knowledgeable and that can really, teach you how to do things. Next, you want to have an understanding of the animals and the things in nature that are in that area. So in other words, just like some people go to a ghost hunt and every creak, every thump, every light that they see is a ghost, or every orb that they catch in a picture is a ghost.
Oh, yeah.
There are some people that go out there and every sound they don't recognize is a Bigfoot. So, and it's easy to get fooled. So and that's probably where my, that's what I'm working myself through now is learning the what the natural and common sounds are of the forest. So you want to be aware of that. But as far as equipment, just like with ghost hunting, you just take a tape recorder. I mean, you can go out just with a walking stick. Most sightings are either people driving down a country road and something runs across, or somebody's on a hiking trail and they catch 5 seconds of a big creature either walking across the trail or through the brush or whatever it is. So I mean, you don't really even have to take anything. Now, if you really want to take equipment to record something, when we go out, like I said, we usually go in groups, which I recommend because when you're going out in the forest, the Chestnut Ridge is loaded with rattlesnakes and copperheads.
Oh, yeah.
So you go out by yourself, get a pair of snake boots. But God forbid if you get bit by a snake, if you trip and break your leg, especially if you're deep in the forest, that can be a fatal mistake. So you want to make sure you're with a group normally. Snake boots are good. A walking stick. I prefer an axe handle that you can use to do tree knocks or wood knocks. The equipment that I take is a night vision scope. I'll take a parabolic microphone. I'll take a Zoom digital recorder. A flashlight, preferably with the option to have a red lens. Red animals typically cannot see the red light. So if you're out hunting, any type of animal, whether it's a Bigfoot or anything else, and you're walking through the forest with a flashlight on, that's going to, if something is around, they're not going to be around very long. They're going to see the light and they're going to go to a different area. But if you have a flashlight with the red light, animals typically can't see that, so you're less likely to scare something away. And then from there, it just depends on, what your goal is. I think if you're out there just to have an experience, like I said, just grab a walking stick and a buddy and head out into the forest. If you're trying to be, very scientific and you want to document things and find evidence, everything from the things I mentioned to, if you get lucky enough to find a footprint, have something with you to make a cast.
Now, what is it? Because that brings up a good point, like looking for a footprint. Like, what do you look for?
Well, again, it depends on the time of year, where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Bigfoot sightings happen on gas lines. A lot of them happen are reported to happen near creek beds or rivers, or water source of some sort, a pond. If that's the case, theoretically, if the Bigfoot goes into the water, they come out into the dirt or the mud, they're more likely to leave a print by water. We've had Bigfoot prints found in the snow in the dead of winter. So, I mean, when you're out, you just have to, just like with ghost hunting, you have to be quiet, you have to be observant. You can't go out with your Walkman on or your iPod on and, cranking out the heavy metal in your earphones and think you're going to find something, because if you're not paying 100% attention, you're going to miss something if it's there. So it's just like with ghost hunting, you have to be extremely observant and, disciplined in keeping your eyes peeled to the ground, on bushes. If you see that, maybe bushes have been pushed down, something's gone through there, is there a hair sample? Is there fur? Is there something that caught on the brush that maybe you can take a sample of? So it just, it really just depends on your goals. But it's really just a matter of being observant and just being focused, really.
Would you recommend folks right now, since I don't know about PA, but I know we're in hunting season here in West Virginia, like to wear, your hunting orange just to make sure you don't get hurt?
Well, I mean, yeah, safety safety is always first. And that part of that is knowing where you're going. If you know that you're going out into the forest and it's a popular hunting area, you may not want to. You may want to go somewhere else initially. We'll go into certain parts of the ridge that aren't hunted, very often, or they're not known for their hunting activity. We've been pretty lucky so far. Since I've been with the group, and I guess it's going on 2 years, I've never been out where we've actually had one person come through on an ATV. We've never come across a hunter yet.
That's nice.
Now that could be just, blind luck. But you definitely have to have some type of strategy where you're going to do your expedition, where you're going to hunt. I hate to use the term hunt because that sounds, violent, but I mean, wherever you're going to investigate, you definitely want to know the area. You want to know if it's, like I said, if hunters are frequenting it, if it's a known hunting area, then yeah, you might want to wear some orange or consider going to a different area.
That's very, very good advice. So anybody out there who's looking to do that, make sure safety first. And Tom, you said that you had some personal experience stuff that you wanted to share. Let's hear what happened.
Yeah, I've told you about a number of reports that, are historical to me. I know of them through Eric or through Stan's book. But a little over a year ago, we had an expedition of 10 people. It was up in the Chestnut Ridge. It's an area that, like I said, consistently has had sighting reports over the years, but had some recent ones just prior to us going there. And I'm going to try to make this as concise as I can because there's really a lot to this one. So
no, you're fine.
We left the main road and went down a covered forested dirt road to get back into the forest. A couple of miles back, there was a clearing and a gas well line that we've been to before. So we were making our way back there. Somebody in the car in front of us slammed on the brakes, got out and got up on the hood of his car. So, we all stopped, and he had seen something big and black, but he only caught it for a second. So he didn't, he couldn't say what it was. Could have been a bear, we don't know. So we continue on down, eventually get to the clearing. Now, we had been there. We had about 10 people with us that night, about 5 different cars. Throughout the night, we had heard some howls that we couldn't quite identify. Didn't really sound like coyote. Didn't, just nothing we were real sure about. Fast forward a few hours, it's getting to be around 11 o'clock at night and starting to rain. So we thought, well, it's been fairly quiet. Let's just call it a night. We piled in the cars and started making our way back down that forest road to get to civilization. Eric Altman, myself, Jay Bachochin, we were all in the front car. Jay and I were looking for something in the car, and all of a sudden Eric slammed on the brakes. He screamed, "Did you see that?" So he had seen a huge, according to him, a very big, huge set of glowing orange eyes in the brush right off the side of the road. As soon as the high beams hit the eyes and the eyes looked at the car, the head or whatever, the eyes went down on a 45-degree angle into the brush. Excuse me. Now, just after we stopped, 5 deer crossed the road in front of us and went behind a bush. We thought, oh, that's odd. Okay, but, they're gone. Fine.
Yeah.
So we get out of the car. Eric's asking everyone in the cars behind, did you see that? Did you see anything? Now, at this point, we're being extremely loud. Everybody is excited, pumped up. At this point, one of the people that was with us, actually Connie and Chris Brinker, who are the founders of the Fay West Paranormal, were with us that night. And Connie heard a grunt in the brush. So we're pulling out night vision, we're pulling out flashlights. I mean, we're making a ton of noise. Okay. We decided to get, me and Chris Brinker and Ricky Cherby from our group, we decided to get into the brush just a couple of feet right where Eric saw the eye shine. There was a log, or not a log, but a tree, a fallen tree laying on the ground right at that bush that had the bark rubbed off.
Oh.
So something was standing there.
Mm-hmm.
As we get a couple of feet into the brush, right at the bush where Eric had seen the eyes, Chris and I noticed that the 5 deer were standing there, not moving. Now, if you know anything about deer, you know that if a mouse whispers, they run.
Super skittish.
Yeah. You're talking about 10 people yelling and talking at the top of their voices, flashlights blaring, car doors opening and shutting. These deer didn't move. Chris and I stood there. The deer would look at us, then it would look in the opposite direction. For nearly 20 minutes, these deer stood still, looked at us in the opposite direction, back and forth. After about 20 minutes, they tiptoed away. They didn't go in the opposite direction. They didn't come towards us. They went kind of, in between.
They were trying to figure out where the bigger danger was. Ooh.
Right. So we stayed there another 10, 15 minutes. Didn't see anything else. Nothing was going on. Just farther down that forest road, there was a turnoff to go down the mountain. So we decided to take that road, go down a little ways, and see if we could see anything there, because that would be the general direction that the deer were looking. So we go down a few miles. We all park, we get out. We're all out with the thermal imaging, the night vision, everything. I see the eye shine. I see the same thing Eric saw. I grabbed him. He was standing about a foot away from me. I grabbed him and pulled him in front of me and said, "Look there." He saw them. He said, "Yes, that's the same thing I saw up on the road." Now, we did, after we saw it the second time, when I saw it and he saw it the second time, the eye shine seemed to turn away. We never saw it again, never had any. That was pretty much all the activity for that night. Now, we measured both up at the first location and down at the second location. We measured where the eyes were according to the tree or the bush that it was standing by at each instance. Both times, the eyes measured 9.5 feet high.
Oh, wow.
So if the eyes were 9.5 feet, there's another 6 or 8 inches to the top of a head. Now, again, I'm not one of these people that's going to say, "Oh, it was a Bigfoot," because I didn't see the body. I can't tell you exactly what it was. I will say this: in Pennsylvania, a black bear on a large size, like if you get a freakishly large black bear, they're maybe 7 feet high on their hind legs. The eyes of whatever it was 9.5 feet. Now, the brush from the first time when Eric saw it, the brush there, we thought, okay, could it have been a bird? Could it have been a raccoon? The bush that it was standing behind, it was the branches, none of them could have supported a bird, let alone a raccoon.
Okay.
In other words, the bush, it was very flimsy branches. It just, there's no way if there were an owl, for example, or a raccoon or something like that, there's no way that bush can hold anything. And again, it was 9.5 feet on both spots. Now, what we think, because what whatever the quote unquote creature was in the bush, we think we interrupted an ambush. It was waiting for those 5 deer to come across the road, and it was going to pick one off.
Now, do you think there was just one?
Well, we're assuming.
Okay.
When the whatever it was, like I said, when Eric first saw it, the eyes kind of went down on a 45-degree angle. Right there where he saw it, there is an embankment, and it goes down about 5 or 6 feet. So that makes sense that it went downward, because the way he saw the eyes go down, there's an embankment there, and then when the deer got to the bush, they were looking in the same direction that we traveled later. So we think whatever it was waiting for the deer, was going to ambush him for a meal. We came up over the crest of the little hill, flash the high beams, it sees us, it gets spooked, it moves back into the woods a little bit. The deer come across, not knowing any better. Now they sense it farther down. They know we're standing here. They don't know what the hell to do. They eventually leave. We decide to follow, in a sense, a straight line and just go farther down. And that's where we saw it again. So either there was more than one, or what we think, whatever it was, when we came around, it moved farther into the forest, waited around hoping that we would leave and it could still get the deer. And then we ended up catching up to it again a little bit farther down.
Oh, wow.
But, like I said, if it was we racked our brains.
Yeah.
We went back the next morning. The brush was so thick and laying on the ground, there was no footprints. We didn't find any hair. We did find a very large trail of bush being pushed down and matted of where Eric saw the eyes initially, and where whatever it was went down the embankment through the brush. So it was something, and it was something very big. We tried very hard to say, well, could it have been this? Could it have been that? We wanted to rule
everything
see
out,
if we
right?
could rule everything out. And we honestly can't say what it was. All I can tell you is at 9.5 feet, I don't know of an animal in Pennsylvania that would match that. So I don't know. But I kind of feel like, and I hesitate to say it because I don't want to be one of those people that, where everything becomes a ghost or a Bigfoot. But I kind of feel like we might have been very, very close to a Bigfoot. But again, I can't say that definitively because we didn't physically see the body. All we saw were the eyes.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I tell you what, it's a night I will never forget. And I'll be honest with you, Jordan, if I never see a Bigfoot for the rest of my life, that one experience will keep me motivated to keep looking.
Wow. Now, is that a place that you want to keep going back to, that area?
It's an area that we've been to prior to that night and since. Yeah, we will definitely, because like I said, that particular area has been consistent over the years with sightings. So, there's, you can have a sighting anytime, anywhere. There was, I don't know how familiar you are with Pennsylvania. There's a town right on the West Virginia border. It's Uniontown. And years ago, probably somewhere between 5 and 8 years ago, I believe, is when it happened. There was a lady driving through Uniontown, not in a downtown area, but kind of in a suburb-esque area.
Okay.
And she had, from what she reported, a large hair-covered creature run from out of a schoolyard into the street, jumped over the hood of her car, and through a Rite Aid parking lot.
Goodness gracious.
Now, Uniontown is at the base of the Chestnut Ridge. And in the direction she claimed that the creature traveled, in just several more miles, you'll be up into the ridge. But I mean, this sighting happened essentially in a Rite Aid parking lot.
Now, why aren't there more like sighting reports? If because it sounds like they're getting a little sloppy on their hiding.
Well, I mean, there's any number of theories. Part of it is still the ridicule factor. A lot of the people that submit reports to us do it anonymously. They ask to remain anonymous, not to be their names published on the website or anything like that. And we totally respect that.
Yeah.
If anybody does want to report a sighting, they don't have to worry reporting it to us. If they want to be kept confidential, that's absolutely, the first priority. But, part of it, I think, is the ridicule factor. Even though Bigfoot and the paranormal has become much more accepted, there is still, even with me, there are people where I work that kind of look at me a little funny because they know I'm into this. And you're always going to have people that think you're silly or think you're, out of your mind because, as a society, we've been taught for so many years that these are just fairy tales.
Yeah.
These are not real. Aliens don't exist. Ghosts don't exist. Bigfoot's not real. So there's always going to be a certain population or a certain percentage of the population that is going to laugh at you. They're going to think you're nuts. So I think that's part of it. I think part of it is sometimes people don't know who to report it to. Not everybody, a lot of sightings happen with older people. A lot of older people aren't on computers. They can't just go on the internet and say, oh, let me find someone to tell about.
Right.
Yes, I think there's a number of reasons. But, like I said, with the ridge, it's a very consistent, it's been a little slow this year, but over the years, it's been a very consistent amount of reports. And again, not just Bigfoot. There's haunting reports, UFO reports. There's been a couple of dogmen reports. There have been numerous reports in Chestnut Ridge of either mountain lions or black panthers, which, are not supposed to live in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But I actually know somebody personally that has seen one. So, and I totally believe the person. I have absolutely no doubt that they're telling me the truth. But just like with a lot of things, just like a lot of hauntings can be disproven, a lot of Bigfoot sightings are misidentifications. So again, not every brown thing that you see going through the brush is a Bigfoot. Bear, depending on which part of the state or where you're at, elk, even large dogs at times have been, misidentified. So it's just like with paranormal investigating, you kind of have to weed through a lot of things that kind of don't add up to find one that you can say is, oh, wow, we really can't explain this one.
Yeah, I guess it's better to go in and try to disprove than try to prove.
Well, exactly. And the other thing, too, just like with paranormal, there's a lot of people out there just trying to pull a hoax on you, too.
Yeah.
You have people that are very well known around the country for pulling Bigfoot hoaxes. And these people have been caught 9 times out of 10, but like I said, it's kind of the same as the paranormal, or it's actually really under that umbrella of paranormal, whether you're talking about UFOs, Bigfoot, or ghosts. You're always going to have politics between groups. You're always going to have egos. You're always going to have people trying to pull a fast one. And you're always going to have people that sincerely believe they saw something fantastic when, in fact, they were honestly mistaken, and it's just, a bear, or it's, just the water, the pipes making that noise. So it's kind of the same principles in all the different categories.
Now, you stay in Pennsylvania, right? That is your area.
Yeah, we have we have members in the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society all through the state. So if a report comes in and it's up in, the eastern end of PA, then, we have people up there, Sean Forker, people up there that are really good, trusted researchers that can take a report and go out and handle it. So we have members scattered throughout the state. We have some members in other states. We have some members of our group in New York, West Virginia. So primarily, we'll stay in our area, but on occasion, we'll maybe wander across the border, just depending on, what the report is or, what's going on.
Well, let me ask you this, because, there's people from, all over that are going to hear this. If they reach out to you, can you kind of point them in a direction, or do you have people that you can contact in different areas to get to, help them out?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody has, especially if they're in PA, but if anybody, in the tri-state area has a sighting, they can go to our website, pabigfoot.com. It's a fully functional site. We have, a spot there where they can file their report. It'll go to Eric or one of the, founding members, and then depending on where the report's at, if it's in Pennsylvania, we can dispatch somebody in that area. If, say, it's somebody in West Virginia, Eric may send it to Dave Spinks or somebody in that area. So, we can definitely, if we don't have somebody within our group that can handle it, we can give you an idea of who to contact.
And that's pabigfoot.com.
Yes. Let me get my glasses on again. Just it is. Oh man, this lamp is bright. It is pabigfoot.com.
Now, is this a service that costs anything? Like,
Oh no.
Do you ask people
No,
for gas money, or this is all you?
It's all us. We are a voluntary research group. We would never charge. And I will say this to your listeners: if you contact anybody for a Bigfoot sighting, a paranormal problem, any type of issue, and the people you contact want to charge you, contact someone else.
That's great advice.
Yeah, if they're charging you, there's something wrong.
That is great advice.
But
that's something that you're in it for the people, not for the money. You're trying to help.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we are a voluntary group, a research group. We're not out to get on TV. We're not out to, even though, for example, Stan and Eric have been in numerous documentaries, we're not out to get a TV show. We're not out to, get famous, because nobody makes money doing this. Let's face it. Finding Bigfoot was huge for a while. But I mean, nobody that's really doing this is, there's no wealth to be made here. People really, you're doing it for the passion and to get some answers. You do have the occasional, like I said, the occasional group out there that it's all ego driven. But like I said, if they contact us, if we can't help them personally, if they're not in PA or if they're outside of our area, we'll give you a name or somebody to contact.
That is awesome. Tom, I really appreciate you, sharing your stories and talking about what you do with folks. Is there any other websites that you have? I know you're in some other paranormal groups. Can they reach you through PA Bigfoot, or do you have other websites for those groups?
They, if they have a report, I would recommend them going to the PA Bigfoot site and just submit it. It won't necessarily come to me directly. It'll go to, say, Eric or Sean or somebody, and it'll go to the appropriate investigator for the area.
Okay.
If somebody wants to reach out to me directly, Facebook is probably the best way, and they can just search my name on Facebook. Eric does have a website also, a separate website, ericaltman.net, I believe. And it's, like I said, we primarily focus on Bigfoot, but we do other investigations for cryptids, and occasionally we'll like I said with Fay West Paranormal, we'll occasionally go out with them and do a haunting of some sort. But yeah, either me through Facebook or any of us through the PA Bigfoot website.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming out. Tom Mihok, check it out, PABigfoot.com. If you've seen something, if you need to report anything, let them know. And if you're at a PA, I mean, they can point you in a direction as well. That is all of our time for this week. Tom, thank you so much again. And for those of you listening, make sure you check out firesideparanormal.com. Check out everything we got going on. Like I said, we got all the socials there. Make sure you go check them out. Firesideparanormal.com. And until next week, don't be afraid, only believe.